Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Officepal Thought Leaders webinar. I'm Dilip Andra, founder and CEO of Officepal. Officepal's mission is to provide tools that enable admin professionals worldwide to be more productive. As a part of this mission, we've been conducting webinars with various industry leaders and experts that are relevant to the administration and office management space. Today, we have Joan Burge, author, master trainer, and founder of Office Dynamics International, joining us via video conference. Hi, Joan. Welcome to Officepal Thought Leaders webinar.
Hi, Dilip. How are you this morning?
Great. So thanks for making the time to talk to the Officepal community and sharing some of your wisdom. We really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. I'm very happy to be here today, and thank you for this opportunity.
Great. Yeah. So I think looks like there's been a phenomenal turnout. There've been close to 1,500 registrations. And
wow.
I already see, I think WebEx maximum capacity is 500. I see, probably about 550 or so on WebEx and, dozens already teaming up on the live stream channel of Officepal.
Great. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm very happy. So there are a lot of people out there who want to be superstars.
Yeah, absolutely. Organizations, some of the EAs are all teaming up in their conference rooms and joining and attending this event together. So it's both like a social team event.
Well, that's great. I think it's a good idea that they're teaming up and, sitting together and coming together in one place. It'll be a great opportunity too, because they could talk about it after.
Yep. Great. So I think before we get started, quick housekeeping item. So at any point in the webinar, if any of you have questions, please use the WebEx interface to type in your questions, and I'll review all the questions and as time permits today. And otherwise, if you're unable to cover any of the questions, we'll have them sent across to Joan, and she can answer via email or through Officepal community. Right. So great. So Joan, you've been involved closely with the administration profession for over 30 years, initially as a practitioner and later as a mentor and a trainer. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yes, I would be happy to. Well, before starting Office Dynamics in 1990, I worked in the administrative profession for 20 years. And during that time, I worked in 12 different companies in 5 states, which is a little unusual, especially at that time, because if you jumped around, sometimes that wasn't seen as a good thing. But for me, I was very passionate about my career. I saw it as my career. And so when there was a good opportunity for me, I took advantage of that. Also, I experienced downsizing 2 times. So those were jobs I lost just not to my own accord. And then my husband had a career, which we moved around a few times with that. So that was why I had so many changes. But a lot of it was I was hungry to learn and grow and really become the best I could. And so I took advantage of any opportunities to take on those higher level positions. And so I experienced all levels within the profession. I started out as a receptionist and worked my way up to working for CEOs and presidents of companies. And it was absolutely awesome. I loved it. So then I thought, as I was getting at that 20-year period, that I felt that there wasn't any real training of depth and meat for administrative professionals. And I thought that was rather odd, being that you support the top managers in a company. That didn't seem right to me. And so that's actually what led me into wanting to provide training and development for administrative professionals. So for the past 23 years, I have been coaching and developing and mentoring and inspiring assistants to be star performers in their profession. And that's kind of the nutshell. It's been great, though, that I'm on the other side of the desk because I have a different view now than when I was in the seat of the assistant. So it's wonderful because I know two perspectives, and I know them for many, many years, like 20 years as being an administrative assistant, 23 years as an executive, a CEO, and a trainer, and someone who could help create behavior change.
That's very impressive. So you've really seen this profession evolve over the last 30 years. Can you tell us some of the key transitions you've seen in the administration and executive support profession over the last 3 decades?
Mm-hmm. It's amazing, Dilip, and I'm just so excited about all the changes that have occurred. And so some of the main changes I've seen, of course, is the technology. We know the impact of that. Oh my gosh, when I was an assistant, imagine if I was able to use technology like this. Instead, I was sending faxes over to Italy and Europe with old fax machines. And gosh, it would have been great. So the technology today is just fantastic. Of course, the challenge is for the assistants to have to learn all these technologies and all the different devices that are out there. So whether they're using the devices or not, if their executive is using an iPad and they're not, they still have to learn how to use an iPad because their executives are running to them for help, just like I do with my assistants. And then, so technology is huge. The second change that I see is the expectations by executives and managers and companies are huge. They really expect their assistant to work miracles and to be that superstar performer. I am seeing where executives are not tolerating mediocre performance. So the bar has been raised. On the other side of that, I see a much savvier assistant today. Many of the assistants I work with are very savvy and sharp. It's just they want to go to the next level. And so I'm really impressed with the caliber of administrative professionals where they're hungry to learn, they're growing, they recognize this as their career. Some of the other changes, of course, over all these years is assistants having to support more managers. In the good old days, we had one executive, and it didn't mean that our job was any less busy. I supported an executive when I was 24 years old. He was the vice president of marketing and planning for TRW. He worked till 2 a.m. He'd work on the weekends. He traveled all over the globe. And my workload was such that I had a higher attempt to help me. So, but what's happening is, that was nice though, because you had that one-on-one. Today, assistants are supporting, 4 to 6 managers on average. And I hear up as high as 60 people in a department, 70 people in a department that they're supporting in some way, shape, or fashion. So, of course, your skills are so critical in terms of them being organized and on top of things and having excellent communication skills. So that's another big change. What I love about the changes taking place today is the breadth of opportunity that's offered to assistants. So even if you're staying in your same job because you like that executive and you like that company, the opportunities are endless of what you could create within your job. And savvy executives are really encouraging their assistants to stretch and take on all different kinds of projects. Many assistants tell me how they're really becoming project managers. And so that's very exciting because I know assistants are smart and they're savvy, and this gives them that chance to use their cognitive abilities and really use those talents that they've been given inside. So those are some of the changes.
Yeah, the role is becoming much, much more demanding, and that's also opening up, a lot of windows of opportunity. And looks like executives are expecting to be really strategic business partners, helping them accomplish their goals.
Yes, thank you. That's another big change. They are expecting to be the strategic partnership. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's something I speak on frequently and teach assistants and executives how to build that partnership.
Right. Yeah. In fact, Debbie spoke about that at our last webinar a couple of months ago.
Yes, I saw that, and I'm glad she did that. It's very important today. And one other thing quickly, Dilip, I just thought of is an expectation today from managers and organizations and HR departments is that their assistants collaborate. That is a huge, huge request now that I started hearing in the past year. So for years, assistants worked in their own little area, and and yet they did connect. They did talk to each other, because they have to organize their meetings and coordinate travel. But now the expectation is they have to truly learn how to collaborate. And if anyone in our audience wants to search collaboration on the internet, they will find out it is a different skill set, and it is different than teamwork and peer synergy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. So Joan, given that you mentored and trained admin professionals now for over 2 decades, what are some of the qualities that you've seen?
Some of the qualities that I see in assistants, those stellar qualities. Wow. There's a long list, believe it or not. But I will tell you the ones that really stand out for me in terms of qualities. Initiative is huge. They take the initiative. They don't wait to be told what to do. They don't wait to be given the next step or that direction. And to take that initiative, they have to have foresight. They have to be future focused. They have to anticipate and have good listening skills. And they have to really pay attention and be alert to what's going on right now in the moment. So they can anticipate, initiate, and prepare and then take action. I love that they're curious. The superstars never have an attitude of knowing everything. And so that's just, that is really core. So they're curious about everything. And they know that what they know today is not everything there is. So they always have a curiosity from everything about the dynamics going on among team members, to curiosity about the business, to curiosity about the scope of their executives' work. They're definitely leaders. And I don't mean necessarily leading other people. They self-lead, they self-manage. And as a result, because they lead themselves in so many areas in terms of a good attitude to actually the nitty-gritty of their daily job, they actually end up inspiring other assistants to be their very best, and they mentor. Another trait that's very important that stands out to me is they have what we call a 50,000-foot view. And this is something very important to executives. So if you think about assistants on a daily basis, they're what I call you're on the ground. They're on the ground and they're in the forest and they're looking at all the trees. They're in that nitty gritty. However, the superstar knows how to rise up above all of that and have a holistic view of how all the pieces fit together and what needs to be done and really the relationship between things. So that's at a whole different thinking level. They see themselves as having a career. The superstar says to themselves, this is my career of choice. I choose to do this. And because of that, they are lifelong students. They don't ever assume that they know enough. In fact, they are so hungry to learn. They have very good communication skills, but knowing that they always need to develop their communication skills. They build the strategic partnerships, as we were talking about. They also have a professional demeanor. So they are professional in every aspect. Their appearance, their attitude, their body language, their actions, their speech. They brand themselves. They actually know how to brand themselves. So it isn't about just professional image today. It's all about branding and what's your brand. So they know who they are, what they want to achieve. But they also are very, they don't have an ego. They use their talents to improve their department and to help mentor other assistants and to really help their leaders shine and excel. So those are just a few of the attributes. There's actually a list, but those are some of the ones that, stand out. And also they're a champion of change. That's the other one. So they actually are catalysts creating change, whether it's changing a process and how to do that work better, or changing how they work with their executives, getting their executive to have daily huddles with them when they don't want to have daily huddles. So those are a few.
Sure. Great. So how does one go about becoming becoming an admin superstar?
Do we have all day to talk about that? We need hours for that one, Dilip. I actually take it takes no. That's a great question. So I think, first of all, it's a mindset. That's where it all begins. First of all, is you have to say in your mind, I do see this as my career of choice, and so how do I really grow in this? How do I shine? How do I excel? And when I was an assistant, I'll just give you a quick little story here. When I was an assistant and starting in the early days in the profession, I was always watching the other assistants in our company who stood out. When you have 50 to 100 assistants maybe in that office building with you or whatever, I was always looking at why did certain assistants stand out? What was it about them? And actually, I ended up observing 4 main components, which then later, when I started Office Dynamics, became the core of a lot of my training. Attitude, skill, teamwork, and strategy. So everything about their attitude was great, even when they were having a bad day. So is becoming that superstar, and the other components of it. But I want to answer your question, how do you become one? When I think back, what I did is I observed. You have to observe the stars that are around you, not only in your office, but outside of your office. And what is it they do? And how can you emulate that and develop that, but not that you're a clone. You've got to be your own star. You have to shine in your own right. And so you have to seek out the people who you truly admire, and not only assistants. I used to watch executives all the time, and I would observe how they spoke, how they handled conflict, how they handled stress in the office, and I wanted to pull those qualities in too. So observation is very important. Seeking mentors is how you become a superstar too. Again, seeing those people who you really admire and really asking them to be your mentor, to spend some time with you and to coach you and develop you. To be that superstar, you have to stretch outside of your comfort zones. You have to test the waters. You have to do things that just scare you to death sometimes, like giving presentation skills. That's something I teach assistants, and they shake. But it isn't that they're going to stand podium and be a professional speaker like I am. It's that you present yourself every single day, whether you're on the phone or you're walking down the hall or whatever that might be. To become a superstar, you have to invest time. You have to be committed to it. You have to continually polish your good skills, because obviously you already have some talents. You already are a star performer, but that superstar is always polishing and assessing. So part of it is you have to assess yourself. Where am I today? What do I do really well, and how do I leverage that? As well as, what are my weak areas? What do I need? Where do I need to grow? And develop that. And another important thing is to get feedback from others. And sometimes that's scary. You're like, I don't want to hear, don't tell me. But superstars, the way you become that superstar is to ask other people, ask people who know you well, ask your manager, ask your leader, ask managers in other departments. What do they think about your work, your attitude, your behaviors, your actions, and be open to the input. So that's where it all begins. You have to see it in your head first. You have to say, this is what I want to do. I want to be that superstar. And it isn't an egotistical thing at all. Actually, superstars are very humble. And they realize that when I become a superstar, I actually feed into the whole world. And I make it everywhere a better place, not only at work, but in my community. So I hope that helps get people started. There are a lot of things you have to do. But again, to wrap that up, it's that observing, it's finding your mentors, it's being committed, it's putting together an action plan, stretching outside of your comfort zones, and it's falling on your face every once in a while. You don't do it perfectly. But you learn and you pick yourself up fast and you move forward and you really think about, what do I need to learn from that?
Great. I think the 5 key nuggets I just picked up from what you said: keen observation, thoughtful emulation, get tons of feedback, find the right mentors, and polish. right? So it looks like these are the 5 key tips that you've suggested. So now, why doesn't one become an admin superstar, right? These are great 5 tips, and so what stops them, or what are some of the mistakes that some of the admins do with respect to their professional development?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it. So first, let's talk about why they don't become superstars, certain assistants. And there are a variety of reasons, from everything to I don't have the time to do it. But some are an attitude. I see sometimes an attitude of I know everything. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've had a rosy, great career. I'm compensated well, so I don't need to learn anymore. That's not a superstar attitude. Another one is fear, quite honestly, because to be a superstar, you have to do things that are uncomfortable. And a lot of, I see it. I've been around thousands of assistants for 23 years. And I see it in my classes where they're afraid to get up and do something, but I push them. I push them and I encourage them. And then they get on the other side of it and they're like, wow, I didn't think I could do it. So fear is a big factor. It's scary to step out. It's scary you might be criticized. But also I want to tell you at the core of it, it just is not in someone's DNA. So I actually spent years doing research because I had an executive ask me, an executive of a big company, asked me about, he was getting ready to hire a new assistant, and was there a formula for hiring a star? And so, Dilip, I actually have an article that was published. It's called The DNA of a Star Assistant. And I know I didn't mention this to you, but I'd like to offer that to any of our viewers if they would like to get that article that was published. They can write us at staff@officedynamics.com and just put DNA in the subject line. So what do I mean by that? We all have things that are innate talents. There are certain things, no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to be an accountant. I don't like a lot of detail. I don't like a lot of numbers. I'm a great visionary. So I certainly develop and can work at that, but it's not in my DNA. So it's interesting. Part of that superstar is in the DNA as well. It's just things that they're born with, they're gifted with, and then they can polish those and shine those and develop those. And I've had lengthy discussions with many assistants who attend my world-class program, and we talk about, they actually interview their executives and ask their executives, what are the wow things assistants do? What are the non-wow things that they do? We talk about that whole DNA piece. And all of these assistants who attend my programs have all pretty much concluded, like me, that yes, you have to have certain qualities within you, and then those can be polished and shined, and you can learn. I know from my personal coaching, I do a lot of coaching where I go into an office and I sit at an assistant's desk for 2 whole days and I observe everything that assistant does. And I'm brought in to actually be a coach to that assistant. And I work with the executives as well. And so while I might be brought in to help an assistant, let's say, be able to respond faster and quicker to all the things that are happening, I know within that first half a day if she actually has that potential within her or she doesn't. An example is I was brought in by a president of a large corporation to work with his assistant. And what we discovered is she really cannot grasp abstract information. She needs everything specifically spelled out for her and what she needs to do. And so, and this is a CEO, and they're visionary and they're big picture people. So what we realized is she was going to work 3 more years before she would retire. And what I told them, I could see it because I had that same interaction with her. I saw where I had to slow down my speech. I had to explain everything to her very clearly. So what we do then at that point is decide she can't change this. This is who she is inside, and that's good. But now how do you two communicate? When you're a CEO with big picture thinking, you have an assistant who needs you to spell out all the dots. And then we go from there. So it isn't to discourage anyone, from trying to be that superstar, but you have to find what you're really good at and leverage that and be a superstar in your own right. Does that make sense as far as the DNA piece? And it's great when you can honestly say, do I have that potential within me to do this? And if I really don't have maybe some of those qualities I need to work for a CEO or a vice president, where do I best fit in the company? Because then you're going to be a happier person as well. I think the second part of your question was, what do assistants do to sabotage their professional development? Is that the question you asked? Second?
Yeah. So what are some of the mistakes that most assistants do, and then how do some of the superstar assistants get this right? How do they approach their professional development?
Mm-hmm. So some of the things I see happen in terms of professional development, and an assistant really sabotaging her or himself is they really don't take it seriously, first of all. And they think if I just do a quick little thing and do this little quick little program, I'm going to change, So they don't take it seriously. Professional development is actually very serious. And I take training very seriously, and organizations take it very seriously. And I've been a lifelong learner. I'm not a college graduate. I didn't have a lot of formal education, but I'm a sponge and I soak up everything I can every day from every vehicle. The second thing is they don't have a plan. Maybe they really don't plan what they want to do. And I'll tell you in a moment what the superstars do with their professional development. A third, guilt. They have this horrible guilt about, I can't be away from my desk. I can't take an hour. I can't take a day. And I could say this because I was an assistant for 20 years, so I could talk to everybody honestly out there in our audience. And that's not good. We're going to talk about that as well in a few moments. About not having the guilt is so critical. They don't have a plan in terms of engaging their executives. So they don't bring their executive into their development maybe, and what that could truthfully look like and be like, and engaging them in that. So it's a journey they really go on together. And another big area is they really shortchange themselves. They don't make the investment in themselves. I know there are assistants out there, they won't even spend $20 to buy a book. And I just view that as, you don't see yourself worthy enough of investing in yourself. I mean, the best thing you could invest in the world is yourself, your education, your development, your learning. Nobody will ever take that away from you. And you'll take that wherever you go. And if something should happen to you and you lose your job, you're going to land on your feet. So a big area is and I understand it. I mean, I understand as an employee, when I was an assistant too, I wanted my company to pay for my training. Of course you do. That's natural. But don't let it stop you, if they don't. And so that's another area. They don't see themselves as, I view it as, you don't think you're worthy enough to invest in, because you won't even invest in yourself. So that's another piece of that. And then when they go to training, the other mistake, it's rare, but you do have attendees. I have attendees, and so do other trainers who come to class, but they think they know everything. And so they attend, but they're really just physically showing up. They don't actually take the information and do something with it. And in that case, if you're not going to make a change, you might as well not come to the training program. And I do the same thing. I attend seminars, I attend programs. So it's really taking that ownership of the learning and being accountable and responsible and taking action on it, and then bringing it into the workplace and engaging your executive with that, and then getting the feedback, of course, of how you're doing. Are you making behavior changes? Which I guess now, if we kind of go to the flip side of the superstars, they first assess. They do an assessment of themselves. So where am I today? What am I really good at? So you have your strengths column, and then you have your growth column. Where do I need to grow? What skills do I need to develop? What do I really need to work on? Maybe it's I need to work on conflict resolution skills. I need to be more assertive in my communication skills. I need to be more confident talking to my executive and building that strategic partnership. So they first have to do an assessment, of where am I? And then thinking about, what do I want to accomplish? What do I hope to accomplish? And what amount of time do I hope to accomplish this as well? They involve their executive. That's a big piece I see in the superstars. They actually talk to their executives about what they want to do. They want that executive involved because they want feedback from their executive later, as they're going through their development. They research. That's a big one. They research. They get on the internet and they research all the programs that are out there, whether they're, live training programs or online programs. And they also want to know who is doing the training. That's a big one. People come to us a lot because they love the fact that I was an assistant for 20 years and I understand the profession. And I've also been an executive for 23 years, so I know what things look like from this side of the desk. But they do their research. Then they have a plan. So they plan out, okay, in 3 months, I want to accomplish this. These are the courses I'm going to take, or the online program, or these are the resources I'm going to use. And then they monitor their progress. Along that track, they're getting feedback from their executives and possibly from other people who observe them on a regular basis. They assess, they tweak as necessary, and they keep this process going. So as they move from their growth, they move some of those skills over from the growth area to their strengths area. They continue to add to the growth area. So do you see, it's a lifelong journey. As much as I know, as much as I'm growing today, I'm always adding to that list on a regular basis. And so continue to blossom and continue to grow. But they're very serious. I could think of some women right now who come to my programs on a regular basis, and they engage their executives. They are accountable. They go over the edge. When I give them an assignment, maybe to get a designation or certain criteria, they go over the top with doing that assignment, and they make sure they deliver on time. I mean, so again, they're committed. They take learning really, it's a part of their life. There is no separation. Does that make sense?
So essentially you're saying take professional development seriously, get your executives involved early on, find your right DNA, right? And then, work at it. So investing in yourself is definitely a great idea. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But, on the other side, I'm sure organizations do have professional development budgets for various roles. Now, what if some of the organizations don't have much budget, or they have very limited budget earmarked for professional development of admin assistants? How should the admins really go about, convincing the organization and the executives about, allocating the right budget? How should they build a kind of a business case, if you will, to convince the organization internally to dedicate more resources for admin training and development?
That is such a good question. Thank you for asking. I have one comment about budgets. I'm going to answer your question in length, but I want to make a side note comment that it is true many organizations and even leaders do not have not budgeted for training for their assistants. Now, certainly it's better than 23 years ago when I started Office Dynamics. I mean, it was an uphill battle when I started this company. And I got more no's. And, we don't have dollars to train our assistants. And, we don't spend money on assistants. We only care about our leadership. So it definitely has changed. But yes, I still run up certainly against people who say we don't have the budget, we don't have the budget. The one comment I have that's probably going to surprise maybe you and the group is there are budgets and then there are budgets. In other words, sometimes an executive has some leeway. If they really, really believe and want to support you, they can probably find the money and figure out how to maneuver it. Why I say this is because when I was an assistant in my early 20s, and the first phenomenal executive I worked for, not my first executive, but the first executive I worked for, who was awesome. He permitted me to attend a 3-day training event provided by AMA in New York. And none of the other 50 assistants in the building weren't ever allowed to go out to training. They weren't allowed to go off site. it was kind of a thing me and my executive had, and I proved to myself I was a good assistant. He wanted to invest in me. And so he found the way to get me to New York and get me to that training. So I only say that now I own a business. So I know what it's like to be on both sides of the desk again. I understand when there's a budget, and you've got to stick to that budget. But I also understand that sometimes you can find the money when you really want to believe, you want to support something. Often, I think the assistant doesn't do a good enough job of being persuasive. She doesn't sell the case. That is an area assistants need to grow in, is persuasion skills, because I hear it all the time. My executive said, no, I can't come to that training, so that's the end of it. I can't attend your conference, that's the end of it. I never had that thought when I was an assistant. To me, if it's something you believe in, you have to persuade them. So yes, you have to do your due diligence. Definitely, you have to prove why this is worthy to invest in. It's a big investment for an organization to support training and development. So I do know that, and they take it very seriously. So what I really encourage assistants to do, like for our conference, we actually have a worksheet we give them that shows every speaker we're going to have in every topic. And we want them to fill in what are the objectives, what do they hope to learn and gain from that, and then what are they going to do with that, and how are they going to implement it. And so that's kind of what you have to do. You have to, go to that executive and have your plan in place. Do your homework. Be very specific. These are the skills I want to learn. This is how it's going to help us. This is how it's going to help me, which is going to help you. Here's the investment. Here is what we'll reap from that investment. So yeah, you have to be very serious about it, especially if it's a large dollars. If it's $50, online program or $99, that's not as big a sell, although you still have to maybe promote that and sell it compared to a $1,500, $2,000 program you want to attend. But let's say there really isn't money, because there are times, yes, I will maybe get a call and all training's been cut, boom, in one day. So what I encourage assistants to do is take advantage of every free resource out there. I love it. The internet, there is so much you can learn. So take advantage of the free resources that are available for sure. Don't give up is another important thing. So maybe you got to know right now, but don't give up on it. 6 months from now, things can change. A year from now, I know one assistant, it took her 2 years of hard, consistent work to convince her company to bring training in for all the assistants. Find a champion, maybe too, an executive champion who will help communicate and support your cause is very important. I find where there's an executive champion involved, the chances of a yes are awesome. But for yourself personally, like I said, take advantage of any free resources that are out there. And a key thing, invest in yourself. If you need to spend the $40, $59, the $99, the $150, reverse the thinking from, I can't afford that, to, I can't afford to not do this. I mean, this is my future. And today, assistants have to be on the cutting edge on a regular basis. If you don't stay on top of things in 1 year, you'll be left in the dust. It's that simple. So there's no black and white today. It isn't a matter of, should I invest in myself? Should I take training? That isn't even where your thinking should be anymore. It's, I need to do this. Now, what are the vehicles and the resources I'm going to find to do this?
Absolutely. The best investment, as you said, you can make is invest in yourself, right? So Joan, can you share some examples or success stories of, admin assistants who have invested in themselves and were able to grow their career or, reap other benefits?
There are a few who immediately come to mind. I mean, I know there's many I've met over 23 years, but a couple ladies who come to my mind because the last 3 years they've been right in front of my face. And so for one assistant, she was a high-level, great assistant, and she has an awesome job with a large Fortune 500 company. and she's in New York, and she's come to several of my programs, but she's an eager learner on her own. I mean, she steps out and she does bold, big things for herself and stretching herself. And just about 3 months ago, her organization came to her. There was a very good position that opened in Charlotte, North Carolina. That was a promotion for her, better money, still in the administrative arena. And she got that position. Another example is another assistant too within the past year. She's invested in herself. She actually has paid to come to every one of my high-level programs, which for her equated to thousands of dollars, because she took her own vacation time, she paid her own travel, she paid her registration, she paid her hotels, everything. Well, she had a big hardship had happened earlier this year, and she immediately lost her job, just unusual circumstances. She had needed to get rent paid and all kinds of things. Anyway, she ended up leaving her place. She didn't have a job. And within a very short time, she turned her whole life around. She got an awesome job, better than what she had, more money, better opportunity, better position. And she ended up living in a even more fabulous apartment she got for herself. But this is someone who worked on developing herself. Some more simpler stories are, I know of another woman, her name is Gilly, and she lives in Denver, actually. And I met her years ago. She came to my world-class assistant program. She was in her 50s at that time. And at that particular program, we had talked about creating your career portfolio. And we actually create the portfolio in class. And so she had worked on this whole career portfolio. Now, she was a seasoned assistant. She worked for a president of a large energy company. I mean, she was already like the creme de la creme, right? She had come to my class within a few months. Her president was let go immediately, out the door. They didn't let her back in to the organization right away. You know, there are all kinds of things happened anyways. What she learned by putting her career portfolio together. She did that. She had a marketing brochure for herself, all these little pieces that we learn. Within 2 months, she landed an awesome job working for another president of another big company. Strangely, about a year later, under unusual circumstances, she lost that position. And again, she went back to her career portfolio, her branding that we learned in class, and some other pieces we had talked about, and she landed another fantastic job. And, you know, the thing is, I hate to say it, but when you get into your 50s, a lot of assistants are concerned. Where are they going to go? They have a fear that people will not hire them. And it isn't right, but I'm just saying this is a fear they have internally, that if I lose my job and I'm in my late 50s or mid 50s or 60, where am I going to go? Because I don't want to start out at the bottom. You know, I already worked my way up in the profession. So it was very, it was wonderful that she landed all these cream jobs, but it was because she had invested in herself. She never thought that I'm great already, I don't need to do anything. And then she put the pieces in place. So those are a few stories.
Definitely, they're really good examples. I'm sure you have many more to share.
I know. I've been fortunate to meet so many awesome assistants over all these years. It's impressive.
Right. So one of the things you talked about is about guilt, right? So when admin professionals, they're taking time off from work to attend these professional development programs, how does one overcome the guilt, and how should they plan their time wisely away from work?
Guilt's a big factor. The great thing about assistants, and I felt the same way, is you want to be there all the time for your executive, and you just want to be there for everybody. Assistants who see this as a career are always giving of themselves and never want to let their executives down, ever, However, we've got to shift that thinking. I mean, that is wonderful. No, we don't want to shift that thinking, because that's great thinking. We never want to lose thought of that. But what we want to see is that when we invest in ourselves, even if we take an hour, that we're actually helping our executive, we're helping our company. If I spend an hour and I'm on a program, a webinar that's going to help me grow and learn, I'm going to become better as an individual. That's going to flow over to my executive and anyone else who's in our, immediate department or arena. So to not have that guilt is very important. Guilt is something we do to ourselves. Now, I will say that executives do sometimes make their assistants feel guilty. Oh, you can't be gone for a whole day. What am I going to do without you? So one thing is you got to tune that out. And you have to see it as this is an investment. I mean, if you look at, I just always think about, what do executives do? When I was an assistant, I modeled my life after executives, and I watched what did they do? And I want to implement that. I want to bring that into my profession. So if you think about it, how many times do executives take off to invest in development and the conferences and the meetings and all the different things they attend to develop themselves? And they have a much more difficult schedule than assistants, right? And yet they do it because they know the payoff, the long term. So you want to look at what's the long-term impact. If I take an hour today, what's the impact over 12 months after 2 and 3 years? So just switch that thinking, switch your belief system. To not have that guilt, like I said, is important. A few other things is making a plan. As you said, planning for your time away. And that's what I see the superstars do. They discuss what they want to do with their executives, whether it's on site, something they're doing online, or they're going to a live program, and making sure that they have their processes in place. If their executive is traveling and maybe going on a big trip overseas, they'll still show up to class, but they have, they'll check in when they need to make sure there aren't any travel issues for their executive. So they definitely have a plan. Maybe who's going to be there, who could be your backfill when you are going to the training. And that's why it's good when you kind of cross-train with each other and you know a little bit about each other's jobs, that maybe if you have to jump in for that day, you can do that for that individual. Find the quiet time, figure out when you could do that. So do you need to maybe go into a meeting room and take a half hour and just lock yourself in that room so that you can be very focused for that development time? But I think the guilt is the main thing you're asking about, correct? And how to get over the guilt.
Right.
It's a matter of switching your thinking and saying, first of all, I deserve this. I'm worthy. And I look at it again, if I become the best assistant I can be, I am going to be so great for my executive. And I'm going to reduce my stress level, and I'm going to know how to handle situations in the workplace, and I'm going to know how to manage that other assertive coworker. So I'm going to be better, but I'm going to impact everyone that I come in contact with. And so that's not selfish. It's actually the complete opposite. I am the most giving person when I invest in me, because I'm going to be able to give so much more to you as my manager, the leaders, my department, my entire organization, my administrative peers. It's the most unselfish thing you can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So I just checked the Q&A panel, and there are a stream of questions that are coming up. And in fact, I'll kind of blend in some of those questions into this. So in fact, one of the questions that's just come up is, Joan, do you recommend any professional development tools available out there for admin assistants, whether they're free, paid, right? What are some of the tools that you recommend?
There are numerous. There's a plethora of tools out there today, which weren't there 23 years ago, even 5 years ago. So there are, well, first of all, I love Officepal in terms of the collaboration that you're able to do through Officepal. So thank you, Delete, for starting what you have started. It's absolutely wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I love the, there's, I got to think of it now. There's adminsecret.com is still out there, I believe. The Executive Secretary magazine is awesome. There's a lot of information out there. there are so many groups now. There's the IAAP group, the International Association of Administrative Professionals, who provides training programs. There are a lot more opportunities out there. There are a lot of individuals. Christy Civic does wonderful work on career development. So if you really want to focus on your career, she's awesome. Julie Perrine is another person whose work we like, and she focuses on some specific areas. Melba Duncan is a colleague of mine. Melba is very high-end and offers high-end boot camps. And then, of course, we have a plethora of, we have everything. In terms of, we have over 900 blogs, and they're all broken down by topic, so free resources. We have over 50 free videos, educational videos for assistants. We also have paid programs for assistants. We have the coaching, we have our world-class assistant workshop, our annual conference, our Star Achievement program is our big flagship program. But there are a lot of tools out there today. I'm trying to think, I know there's more out there. Admin Universe, Joanne Linden, she's up in the Silicon Valley area. So she actually teaches our STAR program as a public workshop up in that area. There are a lot of terrific people out there today doing good work. So I encourage them just go out there and do their searches. But those are some of the resources and people I'm impressed with what they're doing, and I like their work.
Great. So so tell us a little bit about the STAR program that you just mentioned about, and how do you make these admin superstars shine bright and
I love it. Well, STAR is really my baby. It's really my baby. It comes from my heart at a very deep level, and it is our flagship program. It is the most comprehensive training program for administrative professionals really around the globe. And I can honestly say that because I know what's out there, but it is a tri-level program. There are 12 full-day workshops with 3 levels of learning. But first and foremost, STAR Achievement is a philosophy-based program, and that's the huge difference. We know there's a lot of programs out there on conflict resolution and team building and leadership skills and all of that. But what we're teaching assistants is a philosophy, a way of thinking, a way of being, a way of performing. It's a way of life. And so the philosophy says to an assistant that they have the ability to be a star in the profession. But it does take 4 components. And this is where the attitude, skill, teamwork, and strategy comes into place. So it's about achieving and maintaining a positive attitude about everything. It's about the skill side, enhancing the good skills you already have and building new skills. The team piece is building a variety of team relationships. So not only with your executive, but with your department and especially your administrative peers today. So we're really pushing the collaboration piece. And then the 4th component is strategy. You have to have a strategy for actualizing your professional self, knowing how to set goals for yourself, knowing how to brand yourself. So the 4 main components then break down into a variety of topics that take several days to teach, but it is a program of evolution. It is a program of changing behaviors, and we don't change behavior in a day. That's why it's such an in-depth program. But also, I really see the changes in people in STAR, and it isn't because so much of what I wrote. I'm just giving them ideas and tips and techniques that I know work, that I've been using for more than 40 years. But they do the work. They take it, they take hold of it, they go out, they live it, and as a result, their life changes for the better. Like I said, it's a lifelong philosophy. So the great news about when you learn a philosophy, you take it with you the rest of your life. Whether the training's taking place or not, it's a part of who you are. This program is offered for 20 years, 21 years. It was only offered on site. Now, also, while it's 20 years old, we've had 16 additions to this program. In fact, I just updated 8 of the modules this year. So it's always current, relevant, everything. But we also now, for the first time, have offered it as a public open enrollment class in Las Vegas. I only hold it once a year. There's a level 1 and a level 2. So it's a very intense program. And also something we're offering with it, Dilip, is they can receive a curriculum-based designation. So if an assistant goes through 8 of the modules and also gets feedback from their executive and completes an assessment, they can receive their Certified Executive Administrative Professional designation. So that's just the surface of STAR. It's so huge because it's evolved over all these years, but those are the core important pieces, as far as the philosophy. And then again, why they become stars, because being a star, I don't know if we talked about this, but there isn't any one big secret to being a STAR assistant. You know what? It's doing 100 things well. And so that's why STAR is so massive. It isn't just one thing I'm going to tell you that's going to make you a superstar. You have to do 100 things and you have to do them well. And you go from your foundation competencies to very advanced competencies where we do get in and we teach the persuasion skills and the assertive communication skills and thriving on change and being a leader and, being solution driven.
Right. So how many people or how many assistants have graduated from your programs over the years, Joan?
You know what, Dilip, I hate to say it, I don't have the exact number. I just know it's thousands because sure. One thing is I teach, for years I taught the STAR program myself. And then I have trainers now who teach for me, but also years ago I offered a trainer certification. So we have a lot of big corporations like Cisco. Debbie Gross teaches the STAR Achievement Program there. Humana, Kindred Healthcare, all these big, Procter & Gamble just came on board 3 years ago. So they have executive assistants who want to teach this program, and they come here to Las Vegas. They are coached by me very specifically how to teach this program. And then they go into their companies and they teach it. So they're teaching it to hundreds of people. And so that's why I don't always know all the numbers, because they're doing the actual teaching of the classes. And then there's times I'm brought in, and then we have the public work courses. So now I just know we've reached just thousands, tens of thousands of administrative professionals with that one program. And then we have our other courses. I have over 40 standalone programs and then world class. So it's been very good. And actually what happens with STAR Achievement that's very unique is it becomes a part of their corporate culture. We have one Fortune 50 company. STAR Achievement has been there for 13 years. It is a way of life for the assistants at this company. And all the executives know about STAR. And in fact, when they're interviewing or hiring for a top level, like a vice president, they want to know if that assistant has been through the STAR program. And sometimes they only will interview assistants who have gone through the STAR program because they know they're going to find that quality, top-notch assistant. And because it also demonstrates you go above and beyond, right? If you've attended 8 full days of training in a year or 2 years, that says a lot about you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So a couple of questions again from attendees. So here's a question. I've noticed recently that job postings for executive assistants require bachelor degrees. What does Joan think in prompting this requirement?
Yeah, that's a big change. And thank you for asking that question, because it is creating some issues for assistants, even in the workplace, who have been at their jobs for 20 years. I'm hearing that if they want to get promoted, they have to have a degree. And, their thing is, I've already been doing this for 20 years and my lifestyle really doesn't even permit that. So what do I do? So here are my thoughts. And I'm also going to share with you what some top executives have told me why they're requiring a degree. Is they feel that it makes you a more well-rounded person, business person. That's the main reason, because there's a big company who I had an issue kind of in a way of why you're requiring this. And then that made sense. I get it, because you learn different skills, you learn cognitive thinking. Just by going to the courses, you're learning different skill sets. And yet with that, I will tell executives, a degree does not make a star assistant. Because I will get phone calls actually in the past year and a half. We have gotten more phone calls from top executives, from HR executives saying, would you come in and teach our president's assistant how to be an assistant? And I'm like, well, why did you hire her? Well, because she's a college graduate and she had all these great attributes, but she doesn't know how to be an assistant. Can you teach her? And I'm like, oh, okay, do we have a year? If you think I could come in and teach her in a day or him in a day, that is not what this is about. Mm-hmm. So I understand the requirement degree, and it does make you stretch and the skills that you could develop. I understand it makes it difficult. Maybe you're not in a position or you won't want to make that big commitment. I think that's where, you have to continue to prove yourself that you excel. And that's right. Why maybe if you're learning on your own. But yes, it does create a barrier because some companies are very adamant that if you don't have that degree, we're not going to hire you. But like I said, I talk to the companies and HR and the executives saying, don't assume because somebody comes in with that degree off the street, they're going to be a star assistant. I mean, not anyone could be a great assistant.
Right.
So my thoughts are, I think the part I don't like to see is that assistants who have been doing this for years being held back from a promotion because they don't have the degree. Because right. I know they have the skill set. I know they could run circles, in that office. So that's the unfortunate part, that some people may not get those golden opportunities because they don't have the piece of paper. I would say if that's really what is needed and necessary and you want to really grow and excel in your field, then you're going to have to make that commitment, or decide if you want to make that commitment.
Right. Yeah, in fact, there's a great discussion on Officepal where dozens of admin assistants have shared their opinions on this topic about the value of education versus experience in being a successful admin. And, personally, when I hire and work with people, when I hire people for my company or, when I hire trainers to help us do training, I really, I really look at that experience is really important to me because experience is a great teacher. Mm-hmm. And those are things you cannot learn in a book. And there's a lot to be said for experience because then you could learn and brush up on those other areas you don't know. It's kind of like, there's a great saying with employers, a lot of great leaders would rather hire for attitude than skill because it's very hard to teach attitude. Skills I could send you to school if you know how to learn. So I imagine that, the discussion's probably very interesting and a lot of different views on it. Right. And so there's a question from one of the attendees in terms of, if you see any specific differences between the styles in US versus rest of the world. I'll just read out the question, but, the essence, as I understand, is, the differences that you see between US and rest of the world. The question is, the traditional US job model thinking for the assistant is to make the manager look good, but this isn't necessarily the view of international executive who views that as his own responsibility. Have you come across this dynamic in the office? If so, how have you managed that relationship?
I haven't, let's see, in terms of working one-on-one with individuals from other countries, we do have a lot of assistants from other countries who come to our world-class assistant program. I mean, we've had assistants from Italy and Japan and, I'm trying to think, France. And so we do have these assistants who fly, they come from all over the world and come to my training. And so I'll be more in an intimate setting, maybe of 20 in a class, and I'm with them for 3 days. And so we'll talk about some of the things in terms of, in some of the other countries that I've been exposed to. This isn't everywhere because I haven't been exposed to every country. Some of the leadership models are more where they don't want to see it as a strategic partnership. I know of some assistants who have worked with executives from other countries here in our country, And as soon as that assistant became more assertive and confident and wanted to take the lead, she was pushed back. That particular culture didn't really, support maybe that. Where here in the United States, especially the modern day executive, that younger executive who's now coming into the workplace, really does see that assistant as a partner, not kind of, oh, I'm up here and you're down here kind of attitude. I think as far as the other cultures, they aren't maybe thinking sometimes of strategic partnerships. Like I taught in Bermuda for a very long time, assistants there for a big bank. And they really didn't even know the word strategic, which here in our culture, we kind of understand what strategic means. And so my own experience with the limited countries I've been exposed to is I see the difference as assistants not being, as quite as confident in being assertive. We're a little more outspoken, I think, in the United States. We kind of say what's on our mind, tell it like it is. We also have to watch our language, because sometimes what we accept and just talk about with each other and the slang we use is not used in other countries with other cultures and leaders that you might support. So you have to be very careful. On the other hand, sometimes I think when I see assistants come from other countries, I view them as worldly. We had one very savvy assistant from Russia, a young assistant she had the wisdom of somebody who lived 60 years, and she was probably in her 30s. And she was very worldly. I'm amazed they maybe know 3 or 4 languages. They also, in a way, are more open and don't seem as sheltered. They're definitely adventurous because they're traveling 20 to 24 hours to come over here to the United States. How many of us will travel maybe and do that? Sometimes we're just assistants are afraid to even just fly to Las Vegas. So I see sometimes that I think in one dimension they're more worldly in the big picture of worldly. I see where maybe we're a little more ahead in how we view an assistant and executive should work together as far as being partners.
Great. Yeah, so there are a bunch of questions about some of your books, Joan. That's your other side. You've been an author too. Can you briefly talk about some of the books that you've written and, what are the key takeaways from each of these books?
Thank you, Dilip. I will be happy to. I've actually written 8 books, but 4 are for executive and administrative assistants. The very first book I wrote in the early 90s, it's not available anymore, but it was a survival guide for secretaries and administrative professionals. It's not in print, but the ones now that are in print, Become an Inner Circle Assistant, was written several years ago. It's all based on a lot of the principles that I teach in my STAR Achievement program. It's about 230 pages, and it's meat through the whole book. But a lot of it is around that philosophy of being a star. But it also is broken out into 12 core chapters, which are modeled after the 12 core competencies that administrative professionals need to develop. And we talk about a little bit too, what's the new twist, the new trend. So it's geared around that. It's actually our best-selling book. Weekly, we get requests for that book because it's not old. The content is still very applicable to today. And so that's kind of my baby because it's that star theme. The second book I wrote a few years ago called Underneath It All. And maybe that's a little bit of an unusual name, but the premise behind it, Dilip, first of all, it focuses on the advanced competencies for administrative professionals. So being a career manager, managing your own career, persuasion skills, building that, it's the anatomy of a strategic partnership, very high level. But the underneath it all is what the unique twist is that I wrote that book when my husband was battling pancreatic cancer. And during that time, I realized a lot of things that I thought were important weren't important, so important, that I made a big deal out of just weren't worth it. And so when I wrote the book, it is a business book. It is a book of education. But at the end of each chapter, I talk about underneath it all, what is truly the most important thing you need to know about this topic. and getting really to the deep and the core of what's really important in the big picture of life relative to business and you as an administrative assistant. The book, the most recent book we wrote came out in 2012. This truly was a demonstration of collaboration, Dilip. It's called Who Took My Pen Again? And I got to tell you, because I'm really excited about this, so I'll try to do it in a short amount of time. That book was written by me and Jasmine Freeman and Nancy Fraze, who is a top executive assistant at Chevron. Nancy's an awesome writer. But what I'm really excited about, not that we wrote it, I'm excited how it was birthed. It actually was a team building project at my conference for administrative excellence. So every time I hold my conference, we do a major team building event with our attendees. For this particular project, our theme for the conference was how to add value every day. And I thought, who better to ask than the 240 assistants in this room who've come from around the world. And the premise was, I know you add value every day, but what else can you do to add value? So each team had posters and they had X amount of time to jot all their ideas down. We took all of those ideas. We had 24 tables. We took all those posters and then I dissected everything and broke it into categories like accountability and creativity, those kinds of topics. What was also very cool about this whole project is I asked the audience, each team was to come up with a name for the book and design the book. So I didn't want to come up with it. I'm thinking, who better to ask than assistants? What would you name a book? So we had 24 teams submit titles to the book. They had to sketch it out like a book cover, what they see, what colors they thought we should use. And then we had a team of judges. We selected, the team that we liked the most in terms of the message of the title of the book and so forth. And then I hired the graphic designers to actually create that book. So that is a true demonstration of the power assistants have when they come together and they share their ideas. And then we just took all of that and built the meat and the depth into it. And that book, what I love about it is it's very now, but really into the future. It will carry an assistant into the next 5-10 years even with the concepts we're teaching. So it's very high level. But a great, great project. And also as part of that project, we donate 50% of the funds to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. I held my conference in September, and September is Cancer Awareness for Children. And so we wanted to take this project big, not only keep it with the assistants who attended our program, but we wanted to take it out into the world and impact. So we chose Children's Cancer Awareness because September is a month for children's cancer awareness. And of course, my husband, going through his deal with cancer and losing his life to cancer, of course, it's near and dear to my heart. But we wanted to make an impact as attendees beyond ourselves.
That's great. In fact, as you mentioned this, some of the admins from Officepal community within San Francisco Bay Area, they're putting together a very interesting initiative where, they want to group all the admins in San Francisco Bay Area to go out and do some voluntary events. So, so we'll probably be making some announcements on that shortly. I mean, they want to kick off these activities in early next year.
That would be awesome. That'd be a very good, useful to do as a team, and definitely a team building, collaborative kind of event as
Absolutely.
well.
And then also, I think this would be a great way of bringing the message out about admins and, how they're bringing back to the community and helps generate awareness, both on media front and within the organizations, right? I think this is definitely a great initiative, and we're working closely with them, and hopefully we'll take it to all the locations at some point of time.
That's exciting. I know you have some very savvy assistants. I know several assistants up there in Silicon Valley, and they're a very sharp group, and they work together well. They really, really try to come together, don't they?
Right. Great. So we are almost about 15 minutes beyond time. So yeah, there are two questions which we could probably take over email.
Well, I'm
So
a speaker, Dilip. I could talk forever because you know what? I love this profession. I love my work. I love helping
but we have to let our attendees go back to work.
We'll stop. Yeah. Yes, they have to go back to work now.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So we'll quickly wrap up. So before we wrap up, I have one last question for you, Joan. We're just a few weeks away from entering into 2014, and 2014 is going to be a very exciting and special year for admin assistants, right? In fact, it's going to be the International Year of Secretary and Admin Assistants, IOTA as it's called. So can you talk a little bit about this initiative and, based on your knowledge, and what do you think about this initiative?
I think the initiative is absolutely wonderful. First of all, I'm learning more and more as the weeks pass. And knowing Lucy Brazier with the magazine over there in England, and Lucy is awesome. So she's informing us a lot more. I have read the information on it. I think it's just an incredible initiative. And I hope every assistant will get involved, once they find out the information, which does let them know how they can be involved, that all of us out there who support this profession will truly come together and give the visibility, because, Dilip, the timing is right. That window is open and we need to take advantage of it. Minds are opening up to this profession and seeing it as a vital, recognized career. So I'm impressed for it. I'm all for it, and I can't wait to be involved with it.
Absolutely. That's great. So in fact, we have our next webinar actually with Lucy Brazier on Jan 14th. And so we'll be making an announcement on that shortly. And so for those of you who don't know who is Lucy, she's the editor of the Executive Secretary magazine, and she's based out of London. And she's the global brand ambassador of this IOTA initiative. And she's spoken at some of Joan's conferences and other places. So that's great. So Joan, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. It's been a great pleasure for all of us. And on behalf of the Officepal team, I'd like to thank you and your team for your incredible support. And your team has also been sharing some really valuable content and resources on Officepal. You'll continue to do that, and continue to share tips and advice with the community.
We will be happy to do so, and thank you very, very much, Dilip, for asking me to be a guest. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Joan, and thanks everyone for joining this webinar. And in case if some of you haven't yet joined Officepal.com, please do go and sign up at your earliest convenience. It's a great opportunity to connect and collaborate with thousands of admin professionals from all over the world. And, we'll continue to be doing these kind of thought leader webinar sessions early next year. And we'll be collaborating with thought leaders like Joan. So, so happy holidays and happy new year to everyone in advance. And we'll see you again in 2014.
Thank you. Bye.